This is in response to what I've been reading and watching within the world. I'd like to address this mostly to the Christians. Let's take a look at the Bible first. Deuteronomy 5:11. You shall not take the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not leave him unpunished who takes his name in vain. This is what I want to look at, because what I've been seeing is a lot of people, Christians, doing this, taking God's name in vain, and I'm including myself in this. I'm no better than you, which is why I feel right addressing this. I know what most people think this means. Most people leave it at don't swear, don't literally take God's name in vain. But there's more meaning to this. It's not just don't use God's name in vain, it's don't put God's name on something that's not of Him. What do I mean by this? We as Christians bear Christ's name. What this means is when they look at us, they should see Christ. They should see an example of His love, His life, His victory. When they look at us, do we show Christ? Are we acting in a way that shows Him? Because not only do we bear His name as Christians, but the actions come to bear His name as well. If we're acting in a way that shows Christ, then great. And if not, it doesn't really matter. People see a Christian and they think that must be what Christ looks like. That must be how He acts, what He approves of. We take Christ's name when we become Christians, and our actions as well. We as Christians have put God's name on some of the most depraved and evil events in history. We've done this. God didn't. We've done this to things that go against God's law and who Christ is. But because we as Christians did it, people link it with the God we serve. We've taken God's name in vain. If you want some examples, here's just a few huge ones. The Crusades. Let us go out and kill the infidels for God. The Ku Klux Klan. For racial purity. God isn't interested in racial purity. He's interested in the purity of heart and souls. Even the Holocaust. Most people don't link that with Christians directly, but people who profess to be Christians did it, and Hitler quoted Luther for justification of the Holocaust. These are three major things that we have Christians done that have stained Christ's name. We gave these evils Christ's names. None of these actions were of Christ, and all of them went against what Jesus taught. Just a few verses within the Bible that show that. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. This one verse stands against all of them. All of them defied this. All of them were against Christ, and yet all of them Christ's name bears because we as Christians did it. We took His name in vain. Those are the big ones that the whole world notice. But most people don't bear Christ's name on a world stage. Most of us just do it in our communities. So the question is, what are the smaller ones that the people around us see? Lies. Christians can be liars, some worse in the world. And when someone sees a Christian lying, they link that to God and say, God lies. If we're an example of Christ and we deceive, God must be a deceiver. Adultery. Divorce is just as high inside the church as outside of it. Not only that, most marriages end with affairs. We as Christians, if we look no better than the world, then is our God better than the world? He should be. Our actions should declare that He is. But they don't always. Two-facedness. What I mean by this is the hypocriticalness that's rampant in the church. I act one way on Sunday and the rest of the week I do what I want. This is one area where I really, really failed God. Because if anyone looked carefully at my life, they would see a person living for God one day and living for himself the rest. Is God okay with that? No. But the world sees it and they think it's okay. Because we as Christians do it. Violence. Someone looks at a violent person who claims to be a Christian, they assume we serve a violent God. We don't. We serve a God of love. But is that what people see when they look at us and our actions? Judgment. This is a huge one in the church. I don't want to be with those people because they judge us. They think we're better than we're not. We're sinners. Christ said all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. The only difference between us and the world is that we have chosen to take the free gift offered to all, and yet we stand on our high horses condemning them. Jesus himself said, I have not come into the world to condemn it, but that the world may be saved through him. This is what we should be showing the world, what Jesus said, not the judgmental condemnment that some churches stink of. None of these things are of Christ. The Crusades weren't, judgment isn't, adultery isn't, lies aren't. Let's not give it his name. We have. If you don't believe me, then pray and seek out Christ within the Bible. You'll see who he is, and then look at what Christians display him as. Then you'll be able to see if we've taken his name in vain or not. Don't say, what would Jesus do? Look at what he did. He died for us while we were yet sinners, enemies of God. He calls us to be at peace with all men. This is how we're supposed to live. This is what Christ asks of us. And that's the truth that we should be showing. And when we don't, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to the world. This goes out, this apology, to all those who have felt the effects of Christians. We have done wrong, and I with Jesus am ashamed of some of the things we've done in his name, but against him. I with Christ weep over the harm we've done. All I can say as a follower of the life of Jesus, that he lived and commanded us to live, declares it's not of him. If it's not of him, don't show it. Let's not give our actions his name, if they're not of him, but we bear his name, so let our actions show him. You know, a very recent example of this would be those Christians protesting at a funeral. Even if it was the right message, which I'm not sure it was. I wasn't there, I didn't see the signs. But it's not the time or place. That's not loving someone. Love is Christ's love. Don't give his name an action like that. I'm sorry to both man and God that we have fallen short countless times and taken his name in vain. But I guess that's why he had to die for us. His death covers this sin too.